Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Nurul Ramadhina, and in this video I would like to explain to you about second language acquisition. As we know that the second language acquisitions is strongly influenced by the learner's first language, and the role of first language in the second language acquisitions could be a negative one. In the role of the first language, there are behaviorist learning theory. According to the theory, there are two keys that influence the process of second language acquisition. It is habits and error. The learning of habit could occur through the imitation and the reinforcement. And then error, according to the behaviorist theory, transfer will take place from the first to the second language. Transfer will be negative when there is a proactive inhibition. In this case, errors will occur, while transfers will be positive when the first and the second language habits are the same. In this case, errors will not occur. Input and interaction have been major focus of research in second language acquisitions. This because several reasons. The first one is the most obvious case of successful language acquisition is interaction driven. Children learn their first language through exposure to input and by interacting with their caretakers. Thus, it is likely that a second language acquisitions learn in the same way. The second one is developments in language teaching have led to greater emphasis being placed on communication, and this has served as an incentive for investigating how learners learn from communicating. And then third, technological developments have made it easier to collect and transcribe samples of interactions involving learners. The interaction approach assumes that input and interaction provide learners with second language data that are processed internally as intake in working memory and then potentially incorporated into their developing interlanguage. However, not all intake enters the learner's second language system. And modifying output through negotiation provides opportunities for learners as it can push learners to express themselves more clearly and more accurately. Modified output is more likely to occur when learners interact with competent second language speakers than with other learners. The relative contribution of interactionally modified input and output to acquisition remains a controversial issue. Before we talk into the cognitive aspect of second language acquisitions, as we know that cognitive aspect is referred to thinking process and mental procedures that involve in the learning process. So, in the cognitive aspects of second language acquisitions, there are implicit and explicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge is our knowledge about, for example, like how we ride a bicycle or how we tie a shoe. We know how to do it, but we didn't know how to explain it. It is called implicit knowledge, while explicit knowledge is our knowledge about history, date, or math. We understand about it and we know how to tell it to other people. Learning a second language is not just a question of learning linguistic forms, but of developing interacting competence. The development of interactional competence and the acquisitions of linguistics forms are intertwined. Second language acquisition is not a process of adding new language or new identity. It involves the development of hybrid language system and identity, sometimes referred to as third space, where learners find themselves mediating between their language and cultures in their interaction with different speakers. Explicit instruction is not a uniform approach. It can be provided in a number of different ways, involving different theoretical assumptions concerning the role of explicit information and different kinds of practice activities. In explicit instruction, there are presentation practice production. The presentation practice production instruction results in improved accuracy that is manifest not just in controlled language use but also in free production. Crucial to the effect of this kind of instruction is the presence of activities that cater for the use of the target features under real operating conditions. Example, communicative language use. Instruction consisting only of pattern practice is unlikely to lead to improved accuracy in free communication. Explicit explanation can be provided prior to practice activities as an isolated instruction or during communicative activities as an integrated instruction. The timing of the explicit information may affect the type of knowledge that results, but this awaits fuller investigation. The goal of implicit instruction is the same as that explicit instruction, namely, the development of the kind of knowledge needed to engage effectively in communication, especially oral communication. However, it differs from explicit instruction in that it doesn't assume that explicit knowledge is the starting point. Instead, it assumes that classroom learners, irrespective of their age, are able to acquire implicit knowledge by participating in activities that foster incidental acquisition. Implicit instruction assumes that learners will acquire the second language naturally and easily through participating in instructional activities that provide them with comprehensible input, opportunities for output, and also attract attention to form. In this way, as the weak interface position proposed, explicit knowledge can help to activate the process involved in acquiring implicit knowledge. Language itself is a complex adaptive system. Language itself is a complex adaptive system. It incorporates phonological, lexical, grammatical subsystems which are interlocked in complex way. These linguistic systems are connected to meaning systems that enable us to behave in pragmatically appropriate ways. The process of acquiring this complex adaptive system is a slow and gradual one. There are universal patterns of second language acquisition. The learner's starting age plays an important role in second language acquisition. And then in second language acquisition, there are also psychological factors that influence the process of second language acquisition.